occurring at Camp Ashraf, because we know what's coming. In this particular case, the past is prologue. Seen previously psychological torture around the camp, utilizing noise-making mechanisms to try and provide an ambiance of torture, what can only be described as torture for the residents there. Physical deprivation. We saw the videotape at the beginning of this hearing. We know what's coming. What is the United States doing to avoid that massacre that we know is coming? The December 31st deadline, I believe, is simply a pretense to carry out the forced repatriation of these residents. Forced repatriation to brutality, to torture, and to an environment of death. So we must do all in our power to avoid this New Year's Eve massacre. And I want to know, and I hope this hearing will shed light and provide answers to this important question. And I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Filner, would you like to proceed with an opening statement?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the honor of being part of the committee today. What is happening, by the way, rare in committee meetings that are going on around the Hill today, and I hope, Ambassador, Mrs. Leaf, you will report this back to Mrs. Clinton. I mean, usually you see the two sides just fighting each other rather than coming to any agreement or consensus, and I think we are all together on this item, and I appreciate the Chairman's leadership on it. I would associate myself, God may strike me down for this, but with all the remarks that Chairman Rohrabacher said, and rather than try to interrupt Ambassador Fried's testimony because I was a little upset by it, I'll just say some things now about it. I found your testimony a little bit troubling. You start out by saying a common understanding of the facts is important. I agree with you. I'm not sure your statement has led to that or helped us toward that common understanding. And in fact, I have heard the first Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Ridge, say publicly that nothing ever crossed his desk as Secretary of Homeland Security which showed MEK to be anything of a terrorist organization. The Attorney General, Mukasey, said the exact same thing. He never saw anything about that. The Chief of Staff of the President of the United States, Andrew Card, said the exact same thing. They never saw anything that, in their judgment, would lead to thinking of the MEK as a terrorist organization. So all of that facts on one side is just at least arguable, if not false. So I find it strange that you're going to try to, and I could say this, but I have a PhD in history, so I'm allowed to say it's historically inaccurate. So please, let us try to be factual here. Let us try to look at, as my colleague said earlier, this is a group of people who support our policy against Iran, that they want, as we want, a democratic, secular, non-nuclear Iran. I want to know from you, Mr. Ambassador, what are we going to do to help them survive? We know the problems. Let's find a place for the refuge. Let's protect them if necessary. You left 5 or 10 troops in there. That's not very many. Leave 5 or 10. I bet you that changes the whole situation. Put a resolution at the Security Council saying the UN troops should be there to protect Ashraf. That's not easy to do. But let's show where the United States stands on this stuff. Take some leadership. Show some aggressiveness. Don't just give us bureaucratic stuff that says, oh, the place is so difficult, it's so complex, we got all these problems, I'm not sure we can do anything by December 31st. That's baloney. We can. Show some leadership. Show some, don't be so timid. Show that we care about that this is the most critical place in the world. And we want to change in Iran, and we should be doing everything we can to help make that true. Thank you.
Thank you. And Congresswoman Chu, do you have...
Thank you so much. Well, I was elected in 2009, and my time here feels like it's been marked by events at Camp Ashraf. It was then that residents in the camp suffered their first bloody attack at the hands of Iraqi forces, where 11 were killed and over 300 injured. Hundreds of armed security forces used bulldozers to force their way into the camp.